All right. Major, Waymar, why don't you bring your whole group up and let's talk about what we're doing this week. All right, prior to our start of City Council meeting tonight, we've got a rather important event coming up, and National Night Out. And we have a number of our Des Moines people in blue, and we'll ask you to get on both sides of us over here so we can get everybody in the picture. All right, Major, tell us what's going on.
August 2nd, a week from Tuesday, is National Night Out. Had all the neighborhood officers, majority of the neighborhood officers show up tonight. They're going to be the ones that represent the police department and attend all of the neighborhood functions. We're going to be at each and every one in some manner, just to let the community know that we support their efforts and thank them for supporting us.
All right. Well, we've got a proclamation for each of our neighborhoods, and I'm going to read our general overall proclamation. So, whereas the National Association of Town Watch is sponsoring the 28th Annual National Night Out event on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2011. And whereas the Des Moines Police Department, neighborhood groups, businesses, and concerned citizens work together diligently throughout the year to prevent crime using sound community policing strategies. And whereas neighborhood awareness, spirit, and cooperation are important themes of the National Night Out project and are key components in fighting crime and crime prevention. And whereas the National Night Out provides an opportunity for Des Moines residents to join together with thousands of other communities across the United States on the same day in support of safer neighborhoods and to demonstrate the value of cooperative crime prevention efforts. Now, therefore, I, the Mayor of Des Moines, on behalf of the Des Moines City Council and the citizens of Des Moines, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, August 2nd, 2011, as National Night Out, and call upon our residents of Des Moines to recognize and participate in this special observance. And I want to thank all you guys for everything that you do in and around the city, and even those of you that go to, represent us nationally. It's good to not only be an all-American city, but it's we represent an awful lot week in, week out to all of our citizens, and so all of your efforts are appreciated, and appreciate all of you coming down not only for this special event, but everything you do 24 hours a day, every day. So let's give them a hand. And we'll present these proclamations to each neighborhood on the night. And are you going to drive me this year, Lieutenant?
Yes, sir.
All right.
You're the mayor. I'll do whatever you want.
Yes, thank you so much. I want him to come to every meeting. But we try to get to as many as possible. And what are the hours going to be this year?
Usually, most of them 6 to 8 p.m. Some start a little bit earlier. There are 30-some neighborhoods that we have to go to. So we do quite a bit in 2 hours, trying to visit each and every neighborhood, present them with a proclamation, visit with them. And so that's why we have to have so many officers throughout the whole neighborhood, the whole city, to make sure that we make the appearance and make sure the communities know that we're there for them, and from city government, from top down. So they really appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah. And Kelly, we try to go up to your neighborhood last. Let's hope Snooki's is going to be open this year. All right.
You gotta get there.
All right. All right, let's get everybody together. Scooch in, guys. All right, scooch in. Here we go. I'll get it back. Here we go.
You're standing on
That's good. Okay, now should we get the microphone out for the next one?
Yeah.
Put it in.
That money there together, so we can put it together. 1, 2, 3.
All right?
Good. Yep.
Everybody? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
that's quite, I mean, that shouldn't be the basis.
We had an economic development meeting.
Scott, what item is it?
Okay.
No, I've just been asking everyone. I just wanted to know.
much. Did you try something back there? That's all my stuff. I made it all, so. Well, except for the banana bread, but that's homemade too. Those are two things I made.
Good, good.
Thanks.
Did you make them?
I did.
Geez, you're really homemade.
You didn't know how many talents I had when you hired me, did you?
Once you start doing that, like
What day do you go to view?
our city clerk, we wanted to love
Want
to
to
keep
repeat
coming.
it? Whoops, I'll remember that.
I heard that today. I wasn't sure if I was
All right.
supposed to. Is everything okay?
Let's begin the meeting of the Municipal Housing Agency Governing Board for July 25th. Let's have the clerk call roll, please.
County,
Here.
Coleman,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Grease,
Here.
Mahaffey,
Here.
Hensley,
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Item 2 is an authorization for the city manager to release mortgage and related security instruments pursuant to 5H Affordable Home Ownership Program for the following. A is Sue Weatherly at 1250 Ure Street, Board Communication number 11-502. B is Don and Gladys Jones of 2910 East 22nd Court, Board Communication number 11-501. And C is Amanda Welfa at 2819 Center Street, Board Communication number 11-500. Is there anybody in the audience to speak on any of these items? Seeing none, could we have a motion?
Move.
Items have been moved. Item 2A, B, and C. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Items pass. Could we have a motion to adjourn, please? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We sit adjourned. We will reconvene in about 8 minutes as the City Council. We already had our National Night Out proclamations. Hey, Brian. Brian? You ready? Okay. Let's do it. You got your words of wisdom? Okay. All right, everybody, we are about to start the Des Moines City Council meeting, but prior to the start of our meeting this evening, we're going to have a message from our own council member, Brian Meyer. And for those who would like to participate in Brian's invocation, we'd ask you to stand at this time.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
All right, I'll ask the clerk to take roll, please.
County,
Here.
Coleman. Here. Moore. Here. Grease. Mahaffey. Hensley. Here. Meyer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Could we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented and or as amended? It has been requested that we move item 47 up to right after the consent agenda. And was there another one that we were moving on? Oh, 28 has been withdrawn. And we've got Don Smithy is here, and he and I have spent part of the day on the phone with some federal officials, plus I spent a little time last week with some, and we're going to have Don come up after we approve our agenda, and we'll add that as sort of an informational item, so we'll add that, as Mr. Coleman suggests, as item 2A. So with that,
I'll move to.
all right.
7 yes.
All right. Rather than belabor the point, for a long time, I spent last week with mayors from around the country in a bipartisan event to try to sort out what's going on in government, I guess. The most important thing, I think, that mayors have decided, and I'm sure city council members decide, and our citizens know, is we here in City Hall operate on a balanced budget. And we certainly urge all people and levels of government to try to get their budget in order, but also we're talking about, in this particular case with the federal government, the faith and goodwill of the United States of America. And there's a debt ceiling that needs to be addressed. And on a bipartisan basis, our mayors voted unanimously to send a message to not only the White House, but to both houses of Congress and say, let's quit kicking the can down the road. Let's address deficits. Let's do what you have to do so that the United States can pay their bills. And let's talk about jobs, because that's going to be what turns this economy around. In addition to that, before Congress went home on Friday, they decided not to vote on any reauthorization for FAA to continue some of their operations and projects. And I've asked Don Smithy to come down and sort of quickly outline sort of the consequences of that in the short term for Des Moines and what's happening around the country, but also look at a couple of our long-term issues. So, Don, if you would not mind taking a couple of minutes to talk about it.
Thank you very much, Mayor and members of the council. Last Friday night at midnight, the legislation that operates the Federal Aviation Administration expired. As he said, there was no further extension, and there was no reauthorization bill passed out of committee or considered by the Congress. So therefore, 4,000 people are furloughed today from FAA. Locally, and here at our airport, the effect is very minimal. We currently don't have any federal construction projects underway. We have several local, but it also affects airports throughout the country. For example, at O'Hare, you're looking at probably 3,000 or 4,000 people had to go home. In the state of Iowa, there's approximately $40 million worth of federal projects underway at the various airports throughout the state. Those are on hold. At our airport next year, we will have a major taxiway project. We are currently designing it, starting. It will take approximately 2 years to build, and that's about $28 to $30 million, according to the engineer's estimate. Now, also, since they failed to pass the bill, it does not allow the airlines or the FAA to collect the ticket taxes and the fuel taxes that go into the Aviation Trust Fund. As you're probably aware, there are 3 trust funds in government, Social Security, highways, and airports. And those funds that go into the trust fund for airports are given back to us in the form of grants for construction projects and major construction projects. So therefore, that is a big concern for us. And down the road, I think they will probably pass something. There will be a measure. I don't know what that's going to be. But the actual legislation expired in 2007, and we have thus had 20 extensions month to month since that period of time, and some of them a little longer than a month. So there is that same issue in aviation as there is in other forms of government in D.C., and that's the inability to reconcile and get together and get something accomplished and so forth. To that extent, that's pretty much where we're at. The air traffic control function will stay where it's at. The controllers are there. All the safety people from FAA will be there. So the public's really not going to notice a lot. What we're watching for is the long-term effect of this. So therefore, that's where we stand today.
Don, you and I talked a little bit about the amount of funds that will not be collected, and about how much is that a week or a month?
Per day, it's about $30 million. I'm sorry, per week, excuse me. It's about $30 million.
Okay, $30 million a week that won't be collected, that won't go to the programs.
Correct.
And this is totally separate from the debt ceiling and everything else.
That is correct.
Now, to say this is irresponsible, I think is selling it a little short.
Exactly.
All right. Ms. Hensley,
Yes,
did you have a comment?
So this is going to impact capital projects more so? Will it impact travel schedules? You mentioned
No.
Chicago, and I'm thinking that's a nightmare anyway.
Only the construction
It's
projects.
all construction related.
Just that. As you know, Chicago's under a major renovation for the whole airport, so that shut that down as well, all the construction. So it's only construction projects. Also, the engineers that we participate with within FAA for design, things like that, they're all furloughed as well. Approximately 4,000 FAA employees.
And the projects, I guess I'm just trying to think, it's good information to have, and I don't think I had heard it on the news, but I didn't fully appreciate, or I think the level of reporting didn't have the depth, clearly. I mean,
you're correct.
It's difficult to get a 30-second soundbite that would allow
Yes,
what
ma'am.
you just shared with us.
It is, Ms. Hensley. And also, I think given the other problems within Congress, this probably took a little bit, yes.
So I'm just thinking, can we work with the new airport authority, and get communication to all of our elected officials outlining the impact that's going to have on Des Moines alone, and making sure they understand that?
And I think maybe what we could do, at least we could send a council letter and ask, because you still have a board that's in place.
Correct.
So the board could send one, as well as the new authority, and we as a council could send one urging all of our congressional delegation to, come on, let's come to resolution over.
Let's get something put together. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. And also, we met last Friday with the FAA and several staff members of all the delegations here, and expressed to them personally how important this was. And we're also working with Airports Council International, which is the national organization for airports. They've been very actively involved in it, but we just kind of hit the wall. It's like everything else in Congress.
Can you
right now.
summarize the reaction of the meeting last week?
The meetings
With the
last
staff?
week were really non-committal. There are these issues that really don't affect the Iowa congressional delegation. As you've probably been seeing, it's more, for example, in West Virginia, Senator Rockefeller, and on the House side, Congressman Micah from Florida. They're worlds apart on several issues, and those seem to be the underlying reasons. So it simply can't get out of committee. There could be no consensus.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you have the opportunity to talk to our delegation, keep it in front of them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'll make the motion then that we draft a letter for council and mayor's signature and encourage the airport board and authority to do likewise, outlining the financial impact on the city and what projects are in the pipeline that would be impacted by us.
Maybe Mr. Smith, you would provide a rough draft of that.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
I certainly will.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Don, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Down. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Moore, Mr. Mahaffey.
7 yes.
All right, that takes us to item 3 this evening. That is to approve the consent agenda, items 3 through 36. These are routine items that usually are enacted as one roll call vote without separate discussion unless someone, either a council member or somebody from the audience, pose one for further discussion. It has been so far 4A. Councilmember Meyer is pulled to speak. Item 5. Councilmember Moore and I are voting no.
I'd like to add item number 15 to speak, please.
15 to speak. Any other items that anybody has? Seeing none, can we have a
I'll move.
motion? Been moved.
Seven yes.
All right. Mr. Meyer, 4A is approving an alcoholic beverage license application for the following. A is the Capitol Pub and Hot Dog Company at 400 Southeast 6th Street with a C liquor license.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. It's my understanding that Capitol Pub and Hot Dog Company is very close to opening, provided they get approval on all their permits and certificate of occupancy and all that stuff. And so my motion tonight would be to allow them a Class C liquor license upon approval of all those permits. My understanding is they'll be done before the next council meeting. So.
Okay. Anyone in the audience to speak on that item? Seeing none.
Seven yes.
All right, takes us to item 15. Item 15 is approving the removal of Arbor Peaks and Waveland Woods neighborhood associations from the list of recognized neighborhoods. I guess I'd quickly, Ms. Hensley, have you talked with leaders from either one of these neighborhoods?
I have tried to have conversation with both, have not been successful, but what I'm proposing is that we go ahead and continue with the removal of Arbor Peaks because we've had ongoing issues with that neighborhood. It's a small neighborhood, and I'm not sure that there was the real commitment there in the first place. They were established probably about 7-8 years ago. Waveland Woods, though, is another story. I'd like to give them an additional couple of weeks because they have had some individuals come forward that would like to have discussions. They've got a couple of options, Waveland Woods, whether or not they stay as the recognized neighborhood with the current geographic boundaries. You also have 2 neighborhood associations that have expressed interest in whether or not it would make sense for them to be aligned with those neighborhoods.
Okay.
So
I know that Arbor Peaks, that's where from essentially Terrace all the way over to 31st and then up to Grand and that area in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. All right.
So removal of Arbor Peaks and a 2-week extension for Waveland Woods with final action to be taken at the August 8th or the next meeting in August.
7 yes.
All right, that will take us quickly. There's been a request to move 47 up. So why don't we do that? Item 47 is approving and accepting a proposal and authorizing negotiation of a contract with Bankers Trust Company for the provision of banking services. I know there was an RFP out, and again, Bankers Trust appears to be the group that we're going to negotiate with. Council Communication number 11-503. Any questions, comments? Anybody in the audience?
I do have one question that I wasn't able to find in the document. What's the actual difference? Because there's only such a small percentage difference. I've never seen a ranking so close.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Scott Sanders, Finance Director. The dollar amount difference was $200 roughly in about a $50,000 contract. So yes, it's a very, very small percentage difference between the first and the second place bids.
Okay.
Wells Fargo was the second.
Yeah, it was obvious it was real close.
Okay.
I appreciate the recommendation and the thorough process. You know, you always hope that the city gets the very best deal, and in this case, when we have almost 100-year-old company that's here in the city, I think that's a great statement that they step forward with the best bid as well.
Yeah, it is satisfying to stay with a local company. I really appreciate that aspect of it.
We can't always do that.
No.
When they make it easy on us, it's real nice.
Seven yes.
All right, let's now go back to item 37. Item 37 is amending Chapter 122 of the Municipal Code regarding powers and duties of the municipal arborist. A is the final consideration of an ordinance above. The waiver is requested by Councilmember Moore and requires 6 votes. Mr. Moore, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, this was first brought to my attention by Bruce Bergman in a meeting last summer that with the job description for the new municipal arborist position, it would be in conflict with what the current ordinance 122-2 says. He expressed at that time that it did not need to be changed until we hired a new municipal arborist, and since he started 2 weeks ago, I have to apologize for letting this slip, but this is just bringing the ordinance up to date so there's not a conflict. I did speak with our attorney, Jeff Lester, and he agreed with this, that we needed to do this so that if there were a problem, there wouldn't be a question of liability or anything else if this was brought up. And I'm going to move 37, 37A.
All right, Mr. Manager, did you want to make a comment on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I did have a chance to talk with Mr. Moore this afternoon. I think we had a good discussion about this. There are different aspects of the proposal before you, I would suggest. That the aspect that talks about the fact that the municipal arborist shouldn't be reporting to the sanitation administrator, but rather to the public works director makes good sense. That's not a logical reporting the way it's set up in the ordinance now, and it should be different. However, there is additional language in the proposal that talks about how the municipal arborist would manage the organizing and placement of trees and the removal of trees within city parks and other city properties. That language is in the ordinance today, as Mr. Moore pointed out to me. However, I would point out to you, I think that language is probably in conflict with other languages within the municipal code, and frankly needs to be, in my view, modified a little bit so we don't end up with ambiguities with respect to who's in charge of parks. We have a parks board and a parks director, and of course they report to the city council in terms of recommendations on parks, and I think we want to respect that relationship as we go forward. All of this is not to say that the municipal arborist shouldn't have an important role in terms of how we manage trees within parks. That person certainly should as we go forward, but I think it's important to maintain a real clear line of responsibility in terms of our public lands and parks on the one hand, and the expertise the municipal arborist brings to us in terms of trees. So my hope, Mr. Mayor and council members, is that you would refer it back to me for some review of the language here, and I'd be happy to work with whomever you would like. But I want to review the language, work with Mr. Lester in terms of how it relates to other provisions in the code, and bring something back to you for your consideration.
I'll make that part of my motion.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to vote for this, Skip, but the process that we've gone through, typically as a council, suggested ordinances come and we have a discussion and we refer it back to the city manager. Now, if we're just going to refer it back for review and to come back from the city manager, I'll vote for it, but I'm not going to vote for passage of this ordinance. I think
this ordinance is already in place.
I know, but you have a recommended change here that's
Yes.
not had discussion, and that's typically the process that we go through at the council table.
I think it's a necessary change at this time. If we were to have a tree fall and it severely injure somebody or kill them, we would be in a very precarious liability position, because who's really in charge?
Well, I think that the process that we have in place, we can use the city manager to do that and have it come back.
Well, you said you'd add that to it, didn't you? To your motion?
Yeah, to send it back.
That's already part of the motion. He said he'd add that to his motion.
But you're asking us to approve the ordinance. Your original motion was to move 3737A.
Yes, I think we need to change the language of who's responsible for trees today, because it is not the sanitation administrator, it's the municipal arborist.
But I think the more appropriate motion would be to refer it to the city manager in draft form so that they can come back with the final ordinance language for the council.
I'm going to leave my motion as is.
So you're not including that then?
No, I'm including that it be referred back, because we have quite a few ordinance changes that need to be brought about to bring everything in line. This is the most important one at this time for a liability reason.
Well, but again, I'm just saying the process is that they all come to the council and we have input before they're referred to the city manager so they can take action.
The others would come back.
I think you're both saying the same thing. Rick, the part that you're okay with, Skip's moving the part you're okay with. And then the parts that you're not okay with,
well, it's.
Am I confused?
Mr. Meyer, it's a rather simple amendment, and perhaps Mr. Lester could address it. My suggestion to you is that you refer the whole thing back for us to review and come back to you with a recommendation, and I think that would make sense. So I would suggest that you not approve any aspect of the ordinance amendment tonight, but rather with whatever guidance you want to provide to me and to Mr. Lester. If you kick it back to us, we'll make this a priority. We'll look at it. We'll get something back to you promptly. But I would suggest not approving any ordinance amendment tonight.
Is your intent, though, to bring it back with the municipal arborist replacing sanitation administrator in the language?
I think that I agree with you that the municipal arborist should not be reporting to the sanitation administrator. That's archaic language that I think existed for reasons that were probably very appropriate at the time that are no longer appropriate. So that change needs to happen.
Okay, well, if you're in approval of that, why don't we approve that part and then refer the rest back to you for language changes?
Well, the only part I don't quite get there is the sense of urgency on that. I understand your point about the liability, but I'm not sure, and perhaps Mr. Lester can enlarge upon this a little bit, why the situation now is a particularly libelous one for the city, whether it says sanitation administrator or public works director or somebody else. I'm not sure why that's a liability issue.
Your Honor.
Mr. Lester.
Thank you, Mayor and council member. A couple of different clarifications for the record. First, council member Moore and I did have discussion on this, and I was in agreement that the job description and the code should reflect the same placement of duties, but not necessarily in terms of how quickly it would need to be done. So I just want to clarify that. The concern with liability is that an argument could be made that with the job description and I think this is what Councilmember Moore is discussing, with the job description saying one thing and providing supervision to one particular position, and then the ordinance providing something else, that and a crafty plaintiff's counsel will come in and say, well, nobody's really supervising it because it's given to two different positions and nobody's really taking care of it. Is that going to be absolutely solved by this, especially with other ordinance changes coming back? Not necessarily. We'll, as the city manager indicated, we'll be happy to work to get everything put back together. There are a couple of other provisions that do need to be changed as well in order to clean up the code.
Am I correct in, just for clarification, in that you have a job description and a person that's in that job, and the description of the job is in conflict with what the code says in terms of the reporting chain?
That is that what is existent currently?
Right.
I believe so, based on my conversations with Councilmember Moore. But that's and that was based on that understanding that was the concern about liability. But we have not done an independent audit.
Okay, so we haven't fully verified that, but we think that is the case.
Correct.
I think that we need to have a full understanding. I was under the understanding that we had definitely decided that was the case, and one would think that they should be in sync.
They should be.
And should have been when it was written. So,
can I chime in?
Yeah.
Are there other positions that have a defined duty by ordinance? It seems, a little bit unusual that we would define the job description of a municipal arborist through statutory language. Is that?
It's not all that unusual. It depends on the level that you get down to, but there are a lot of places in the code where particular duties are described and defined.
Okay.
If I might, Mr. Lester has a great perspective on it. It's fairly common to see duties and responsibilities for department directors. I think, for example, I use the fire chief as an example. I'm sure there's state code that delegates to the fire chief certain statutory authorities, and your municipal code will typically reinforce those. The same would be true of the city engineer or the city manager, and so on. It's relatively unusual to see supervisory relationships for staff level positions. I won't say it's non-existent, but it's generally not very common. And the reason is that organizations change more than you can imagine. And so those reporting relationships over time modify, and you often run into a situation where the reality of a reporting relationship is not consistent with what's in code. And that makes us all nervous, because then you have the obvious disconnect there. So I would tend to look at situations where reporting relationships, unless they're really necessary or statutory based on state code, that you generally don't want to be that prescriptive in your municipal ordinance that way, because it gives us more flexibility to do it the other way. It's not a case where it's never happened. It has happened, but in my judgment, it's not something that's always such a good thing, because it tends to tie up in knots in terms of how you operate.
I would just like to add one other thing, in that in my experience before I got on the city council and writing specifications for certain things, it seemed like there was 2 or 3 different folks that were making decisions, specifically in this case regarding trees. So we had a community development interpreting standards, and then we had the parks interpreting things a little bit differently, and having their own staff to do it, and then on top of that, then hiring others, contractors to do the work, and it was unclear as to who was supervising, especially when some unusual work got done. And then, of course, we had the Public Works Department that also managed it. So you had like 3, 4 different departments that were, should have had some standard, in which I thought that we had all agreed to, but ended up being something different. So my hope is that while you want flexibility, I'd like to kind of know who's in charge in
Mr.
this
Mayor,
particular case.
I think your point's an excellent one. In my years with city government, I see that situation arise a lot, and sometimes it happens because you've got a code section that is archaic, yet it has that sort of assignment of responsibility. But you're absolutely right. One of the responsibilities of management is to make sure there's clarity of assignment, and when you have clarity of responsibility, then things tend to work a lot better because you can hold somebody responsible for a particular thing. So your point is very well taken. I take it to heart. And in this instance, if you refer it back to me, we will look at broadly the issue you've raised about in terms of trees and how that management is handled.
And what would be the timeline on that?
I'd like to have 30 days, but if you tell me you want it back at the next meeting, we'll do our best to make sure that happens.
I'll change my motion to refer 37 back to the manager to be brought back to us at, what would that be, the second meeting of August?
The 29th. I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Coleman, did you have a comment?
I'll support Skip's motion. I think one of the alternatives, if we're disconnected one to the other, is to eliminate one. Then we can't have disconnect. There's only one. And so long as we spend a lot of time on the job description, I think when we went to hire him, we went through a lot of discussion about that. That would seem to be the benchmark for how we move forward. And maybe one alternative is to look at where we can delete these from the ordinance and let the job description stand that have some clarity.
We'll take a look at that.
7 yes.
All right, it's about 5:02. We're going to quickly start our hearings. Item 39 is on the vacation of the north-south alley between 6th Avenue and 7th Street and between High Street and Watson Powell Jr. Way to the Roman Catholic Diocese of Des Moines for $1,000 and to the Principal Life Insurance Company for $1,000. Council Communication number 11-490. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above. B is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by the applicant and requires 6 votes. And C is approving a development plan for the portion of the alley being conveyed to the Roman Catholic Diocese. Is there anyone in the audience to discuss this particular item? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'm happy to move it, and I appreciate staff working with the two entities. I think this will be a positive development. I think the Catholic Church is excited to improve their property, and that's a really good thing. We worry about tax-exempt entities, especially where they are on valuable land. So it's great that they're willing to invest in it and improve it, so at least it's an amenity for the downtown.
7 yes.
All right, I'm 40 on the vacation conveyance of a portion of the Glendale Cemetery to Franklin Field Senior Apartments, LLLP, for $172,500. Council Communication number 11-489. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above. B is the final consideration of the ordinance above and requires 6 votes. I'm in the audience to speak on this item. See no one in the audience to speak on this item.
It's a very limited.
All right, well, if no one wants to speak, I will go ahead and move item 40 and 40A. And there's a couple modifications I'd like to make. The Waveland neighborhood has asked that the proceeds from the sale go back into the Glendale capital budget, and I think that only makes sense. But I also think some of those budget issues need to be discussed in the context of the budget, and I don't know that specifically placing them to roads or trees or various things in Glendale Cemetery are appropriate. But I would like to direct the sale proceeds to go to the Glendale capital budget. And then also, I'm going to hold off on waiving the second and third reading. I got an email from several different people acknowledging that they couldn't be here tonight, but wanted to hold off on the second and third reading. So I will not move item B.
Okay, we have a motion to, for 40 and 40A.
May I make a quick comment? On your motion about reserving the dollars for the cemetery, I happen to be for that as well, but I know that the council has a policy about when we sell land that it goes into an endowment fund. Would you mind considering a motion that said, you know, your intention is to try and reserve it, but have, since we're not going to vote on the second and third reading today, maybe have the manager respond with a recommendation for how we manage that system? Because I know there's other times where we've been asked to sell property and invest it back in something, and I'm not really quite sure how that, I've kind of lost track of how that system works of our kind of property endowment fund. Rick, am I making any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mr. Coleman, council members would be happy to research that and report it back to you. But I do understand the motivation behind the proceeds going into Glendale Cemetery, and I do appreciate Mr. Grease's notion that the exact use of those dollars would be determined at the time you do your budget. I think that's very appropriate. But we will report on this as you've requested, Mr. Coleman, and we'll have it for you at the time you do your second reading.
I'm sure there's a way we can do it in concert with what we've done before and still get it done. If I could make two other comments, I do understand not voting on the second and third reading, but I would like to say, just for the record, I'd probably be prepared to vote on the second and third reading at the next meeting if there isn't new information or new things. No reason to delay it too far. So, and then the last thing I wanted to say, just for council benefit, you know, there's been a lot of chatter. I don't live far from the property, and people know that I know it. And I think several of us have talked to people that have expressed an interest in possibly buying it and have researched it. I think they were surprised at the offer that we had, how high it was. And as a result, I feel pretty good about that offer. And I think it says something to the fairness of this process that even with a lot of publicity about it, other people haven't, when they were able to, come in and offer more money or a different offer for it. So I feel really good about that people knew about this, took a look at it, and declined it at that price. Evidently, they haven't stepped forward yet.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can I just, and I appreciate Councilmember Coleman's comments in that regard, because there has been a lot of chatter about this, and especially when you look at the people that are involved that are making the purchase. But I just might remind the council that we had excess property over I-235 and 56th Street. We went through a process, and then we had an individual that came in, I think just a couple of days before the council meeting, and it was 25% higher. The offer was 25% higher than the others that had gone through the process. So for those people that are out there, and if there is an interest, you know, this is the time that they need to move forward and look at it, and if they're serious, they need to work with the city staff on that.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just, the point that's being made here about the process is a really important one to me, in that your hearing tonight is really your first decision to sell the property to this particular entity. And up until now, up until you've held the hearing, others had an opportunity to come forward and say, look, we have an interest in the property. If that had happened, then the council would have been entirely within their prerogatives to say, we're going to evaluate those proposals and make a decision for what's best for the city. And I've been very clear with anybody I've talked to about that process, working in that particular manner. And I think that is a way to assure the public that our process has been one that's open, and that others who have an interest did in fact have an opportunity to bring that interest forward. It hasn't materialized, but the opportunity was there.
Any other
Well,
comments?
I agree with Chris. I think we got a good price for that, and I'm not discouraged on that at all, but I also appreciate Hallie's efforts to give them another week for them to come down and make their position known to us. So I think that's a good move on Hallie's part.
Okay. We have a motion.
And I would add Councilman Coleman's amendment with the city manager to come back for the second reading to clarify that process.
as everybody knows, the last time I voted against this, but not particularly this. My concern continues to be the process by which we decide what we're going to do with public land. And I think that broader discussion, Mr. Manager, needs to be had. We have to talk to the people that manage our property. We have to talk to, in this case, the Parks Department and any of the other literally hundreds, if not thousands, of little parcels that are around this city, and whether or not it's appropriate to sell them or not. I know we've gone through an evaluated process, but it's unclear to the general public when these kinds of deals come forward how it is that we resolve to sell a piece or not sell a piece. So I'd like to have you work with establishing a process to make that happen so that we can have an open, honest process moving forward to do this. I think that this almost speaks for itself tonight. I think it's a reasonable use of this particular land. I can't imagine that this particular piece we're ever going to be burying people all the way out to Franklin. I think that we've got quite a bit of ground that's still available in the cemetery itself in reasonable areas. This is right next door to a senior center, right next door to a new library, and hopefully redevelopment of a shopping center and shopping areas will follow closely behind. I would also, if we could look at it, one of the other pieces I think that was suggested, Hallie, was to, there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between where the that shelter is and where the gardens are, and apparently there's just a little out piece that if we could connect those together and under public ground, that may be helpful for long-term access from the seating area to the public gardens. And if we could sort of resolve that little piece, because otherwise I'm not sure that you guys have it either. So at any rate, I just think that we ought to resolve that piece. I think it was a good from one of your constituents. Yes. Okay.
7 yes.
Okay, on item 40, we just finished that. That will come back again. For those of you who were wondering, there was asked for a request for a final consideration. However, the vote was for just tonight, and it'll come back again at the next meeting. Item 41, on the vacation and conveyance of a portion of the Waveland Golf Course property to Russell D. Parks in exchange for a comparable parcel of land adjoining Cummins Woods, and we're going to continue that hearing to August 8th at 5 p.m. Council Communication number 11-493. Is there anyone who would like to make comment on that this evening?
I'll move item 41.
Seven yes.
Item 42, on the assessment of $500 penalty to the following liquor license holders for violation of the Iowa alcoholic beverage laws, sales to minor. A is the liquor room at 2301 Southwest 9th Street. B is Casey's Store number 2676 at 2106 Echo Valley Drive. C is Citgo at 1800 Southeast 14th Street. D is Jiffy number 924 at 3718 Southwest 9th Street. E is Come and Go, number 120 at 101 Army Post Road. F is the Cigarette Outlet, number 4 at 2800 East University Avenue. G is the Tequila Liquor Store at 1434 Des Moines Street, Suite 5. H is Airlanes 4200 Fleur Drive. I is the Shop and Save at 1829 6th Avenue. J is Get and Go number 27 at 1240 Keosauqua Way. K is Walgreens number 5721 at 3140 Southeast 14th Street. L is Walgreens number 359 at 2545 East Euclid Avenue, Suite 130. And M is Walgreens number 7968 at 6200 Southeast 14th Street. Anyone in the audience to make comment on these assessments of penalty? Seeing none.
I'll move them. Should have let Brian most of this vote.
7 yes.
Item 43, on the assessment of a $1,500 and 30-day suspension of a liquor license to Citgo at 1800 Southeast 14th Street for a violation of the Iowa alcohol beverage laws, again, sales to minor. This one was mentioned in the last item as well.
I have a question for legal on this one before we vote. This is a second offense. The first offense was in January of this year, so that's not that long ago. And they also get a 30-day suspension where they can't sell at all, is my understanding. Can we also, because these are the types of stores that are interested in getting Class E liquor licenses, is there anything that we can incorporate in the ordinance that we're looking at for Class E liquor licenses that would preclude stores that have been fined within a certain period of time? I'm just trying to tighten this down because you see these, not all of them, but there are a couple of repeats on here. So I'd just appreciate if that's legally, if there are some options there for us, if we could look at that for Class E.
Mayor, members of the City Council, Doug Phillip, Legal Department. The liquor violation here can be considered as part of a moral character standard in issuing additional licenses or next time around. So multiple offenses, 1, 2, maybe another one, then you could choose to not issue a license based on that.
Okay, very good.
I'm just curious if this one's even, is this Citgo still in existence? Or is this one, is this the one they're tearing down to build a new one? Does anybody know?
I think it's current.
My understanding of this is that they're not open for business right now. This gentleman does own other liquor licenses in the city. And what your action would do tonight would essentially make this a dry location for 30 days. In other words, if somebody else is going to issue or apply for a license, since this violation or this penalty has not been resolved, it would have to get resolved first before you would consider another application there.
Yeah.
Well, would that be for all their other licenses, I would hope?
It's just for this,
no, it's just for
this address.
Well, but if they don't pay the penalties and they don't do what they're supposed to here.
Exactly. Yeah. That can go towards good moral character for non-payment of your bills. Or
in application for other licenses.
Correct.
Okay.
But if they have a 30-day suspension, I hope that it's not while they're under construction they get to count it. I hope it's when they're actually open for business. Is there a distinction between?
That's the question Hensley just stated. I mean, Ms. Hensley stated that.
Well, I'm not sure what the plans are for this location. See, it is.
Sorry. No, my understanding. Here's my point, and what Christine was saying. It was something, right? I think it was a Citgo. They tore that down. Now they're building something, and the question is, does it start now, or does it start when they actually try to occupy the building?
And they're open for business.
Well, there is a proposed time period that it starts, and in the roll call.
Okay.
So it would start, I think, within the next week or so.
I would ask that since they're under construction, that we include in the motion to deny a date that ties in with when they open. I don't think that they should get the benefit
Brian,
of having a 30
I think this is the one that's just south of the river, not the one at East 14th and Maury.
Very good. That's what I was trying to get at. If this is the one that's I'm trying to figure that out. If this is the one that's further south or right there, I don't know.
Just north of Skornovac.
North of Skornovac.
Yeah, it'd be just south of the river on the west side.
Okay. At any rate, I'll just move 43 then.
They're not under construction.
I don't think it's the one that's under construction.
Seven yes.
Okay, item 44, the 2011 ADA Sidewalk Ramp Program Contract 1, resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate designating the lowest responsible bidder as TK Concrete, Inc., Tony J. Vermeer, President, $449,925. Council Communication number 11-492. Is there anybody in the audience to speak to this? Seeing no one, could we have a motion?
Move 44 and 44.
7 yes.
Item 45, a resolution to reject all bids and to close the hearing on plan specifications, form of contract, and engineer's estimate on the Grays Lake Shoreline Restoration. Council Communication number 11-484A, ordering the construction of Grays Lake Shoreline Restoration, receiving bids 8/16 of 11, setting the date of hearing of 8/29, and the construction estimate is $239,000. Council Communication number 11-487. Anyone here to speak on this? Essentially, we're rejecting all bids.
I'll move 45. Yep.
And the next one, whatever it was.
7 yes.
All right, that completes the hearings at 23 after 5. That takes us back to item 38. Item 38 from Yogesh Shah of 3200 Grand Avenue to speak regarding making Des Moines part of the World Health Organization, WHO, Global Network of Age-Friendly Cities. Dr. Shaw.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Thank you for your time for this evening. Tonight I'd like to discuss about the WHO, or the World Health Organization's network on age-friendly cities. I am a geriatrician. I see patients who are elderly, and I teach at Des Moines University on aging issues. And my co-chair and co-speaker, Joel, is an executive director at Aging Resources. So briefly, I'd like to talk about the concept and see how we can make Des Moines as one of the first Midwest cities approved as WHO's age-friendly city. So WHO came out with this concept recently to accommodate and include elderly people in urban environment that promotes active aging. And the reason to do that is that we live in the globe, nation, state, and city with older people. And the numbers, as you can see over here, by 2030, internationally, globally, it's going to be about 1 billion people. In US, we talk about 20 to 25% of people above age of 65. In Iowa, that's going to be about 30% by 2030. In Polk County, currently we are about 11.2%. In Des Moines, it's about 14% about age of 60. So it does apply to what we're going to talk about and make Des Moines as age-friendly city. This is very interesting, even from me as a geriatrician, that 100 plus is going to be one of the fastest segment in next 30 years. So our centenarians are going to be one of the fastest growing segment, about at the rate of 400%. So what does overall the academics and WHO talk about is what can we do? One of the concept is known as active aging, and that means that making environment, cities, counties successful where physically, socially, and so people can remain active, they become more active, they get civil engagement, they feel more valued in our society. And WHO has done that. This is one of the nun who's a 96-year-old learning how to play games on internet and the excitement on her. So it's never late to do that kind of things. What WHO has done has come up with a nice bottom-up plan which has 8 facets, and they make them as age-friendly. This plan, which are as listed over here, they're not new to us. Some of the areas like transportation, Joel was saying that we in Des Moines have programs like a HAWK program. These are the areas of interest for City of Des Moines, and the direction of also for a group called Capital Crossroads. As many of you might know, Capitol Crossroads is a vision of Greater Des Moines and Central Iowa. This project, especially the WHO project, has been integrated in their plan, and we have many of their leaders in our committee. The committee list has been given to you. Barry Griswold and Mary Willits, Jerry Meharry, they are all part of the Crossroads, and they're part of our committee supporting our WHO network also. So to become the member of this network, what we have to do, Des Moines has to file a simple application, which is one-page application about our needs, and then a letter from the mayor committing the city to a 4-state cycle. And because of the time, I'll not go into the 4-state cycle, but basically it's over 1 to 2 years, we do planning about our needs. Over next 3 to 4 years, we implement some of the needs. And then in about 5th or 6th year, the WHO evaluates our process, and then we repeat the cycle. So if once we write the application and write the letter, we become member of the WHO Global Health Workup Network. And then once we finish the process, we are part of the network. So becoming member is just application and a letter from the mayor's office.
Okay.
So we'll ask Joel to speak a few things about the topic, and then
whatever we do to improve the quality of life for elders in our city, we automatically improve it for others. And the others would be the disabled population, young families. Take an example of a curb cut, how simple that is, but how meaningful it is for people's mobility. If they have difficulty seeing or difficulty ambulating, that makes it easier. But if you're a disabled person, it's critical. If you're hauling a baby carriage, it is important. If you're running, you don't stumble across the curb, but keep on striding along. That's what's so interesting about the age-friendly concept, is it's intergenerational. So whatever we're doing to improve it, for example, putting a park bench out there more frequently, improving transportation in a loop sense, which has already been proposed by DART, this will help people come out to do and to contribute. That's the social capital that we're after. So I think this is a great opportunity. Both Dr. Shaw and I are strong believers in our city's future. If we're rated #1 for young professionals, there's no reason why we can't be deemed the first age-friendly city in the Midwest. Questions?
So is it my understanding you're asking for city, in addition to the letter from the mayor and the application, then you'd ask for city staff to be part of committees, or you're looking for other representation, is that correct?
As we move along, it's an evolving concept, and definitely we want to refocus all of these items so that it is consistently applied and we have it work for the benefit of all.
Bob, did you have a question?
Yeah, a comment. Joel and his efforts at Aging Resources as working diligently to keep people in their homes where we can do it much cheaper, like $500 a week, they stay in their home. But when you go into a retirement home and that, you're like over $3,000 a month. And so it's a lot more expensive to put them in. And not only that, but they like their surroundings that they have at home too. So, and Joel's worked on this diligently for years. And as a city, we have a membership on their board too. So, and I think it's a great program that they're pursuing here. Yeah.
Whatever it takes to keep a person independent in their own home for as long as possible, that's what it's all about.
And Mr. Manager, we sort of have a citywide program going with curb cuts and all that to meet ADA compliance as well, which I think probably meets many of the goals that you're looking for. Mr. Manager, do you have a comment?
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you. As somebody who's maybe a little bit older than some of the people in the crowd, I was very happy to hear about the 100-year-plus part of this equation. That was really encouraging. That hits home with me. The mayor's comment's right on target. We have an ADA compliance program that's quite aggressive and I might say quite expensive. terms of the improvements and changes we have to make to municipal buildings, including curb cuts and sidewalk drops and so on. My question for you is this. It looks like, if I got from the presentation, that there's a fair amount of work that goes into the planning and the implementation and so on. And I'm quite sure the city would be able to help in that process. But are there others around the table that will help us in the formulation of the plan? Does DMU have resources to commit to this that will work with us in that regard, or are we sort of on our own in putting it together?
No, it is not. It's all the, as you got the list of the very impressive members who have agreed to be part of this council, they will put their expertise, leadership, and the resources possible. Yes, and as I mentioned, the Capital Crossroads has integrated this as part of their program, and once it's launched, hopefully this will be one of the first items they'll be able to implement and start working on.
It is almost always a question of resource allocation, not only in the plan preparation, but then in the implementation. And our city is doing very, very well, but we're not a terribly wealthy city. So in those areas, as we go forward, should council want to do that, it will be an important consideration for us. So we'll be looking to you for help in that regard.
We will.
Any other questions? All right.
I'll make a motion that we move forward, submit the grant, or submit the letter of support for it, have the mayor sign that, and take the next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you for both of you coming down. Appreciate it very much. Mr. Coleman.
Sorry.
6 yes.
All right, that takes us now to item 46, which is approving a resolution approving components of the executive summary of the draft Municipal Services Center Master Plan and directing the city manager to proceed with specific actions to advance the Municipal Service Center project, as setting a date of hearing on the intent to acquire property and municipal services and authorize acquisition of necessary property interests from affected property owners for the Municipal Services Center, Phase 1, 8 of 11, Council Communication number 11-506. We're in the audience to speak on this item. Mr. Manager, do you quickly want to explain the process we're going to go through here?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, there's been extensive presentation on this particular subject. It is one, I think you know, that I think is particularly vital to the city. And just one piece of background information may help illustrate the significance of this. We have a city that houses its field operations in a number of different locations around the community. I'm thinking primarily of public works and parks, but there's others as well. And if you go out and you look at these facilities, invariably what you see is older buildings that are working fine, but are not particularly efficient, and they don't allow us to afford some of the economies of scale that you would typically have if you had a well-planned municipal service center. This particular plan, should the council approve us, really launches us in a direction of having a workforce that is located in such a way that it will serve the city very, very well for a long period of time. It is the first time in my experience with the city that there's ever been an intentional effort to sit down and really plan how we're going to accommodate our operations within the city, and it is a huge step forward for the city to take. I think there are 4 key things I want people to know about this one. The first is that the plan would allow us to consolidate our field operations in one location. If you can do that, there will be economies of scale. There will be savings that come out of that process because we have all of our folks in one location. And it's not just the people, it's the equipment as well that will be able to operate more efficiently over a period of time and reduce our cost of service. Very important thing for us to do. The second thing is, if you know the location, east of East 14th Street, north of the Des Moines River, right along the proposed Southeast Connector route, it is a part of our city that has seen very little investment, at least in the last 40, 50 years, and longer, actually, truth be known. There has just not been much going on in this part of our community. This project, all by itself, in my view, will serve as a huge incentive not only to improve the area where the municipal service center would be, but also all of the areas around it which have seen very little invested in these particular areas. In fact, I think it's not too much of an overstatement to say that this project will transform an area of the city that is desperately in need of this kind of investment. And frankly, just down the street from Kimmon Industries and some other great projects that we have coming. So it's very, very positive in that regard. Two other points. One is that this council has been hugely supportive of our collaboration with other governmental units, other cities, Polk County, the state of Iowa, organizations, other 28E agencies like DART. All these agencies are services that, one way or the other, serve our population, spend our tax dollars, and our ability to offer the collaboration with those other governments in one location is really a wonderful opportunity. We've not had it before. We've never had the opportunity to do it in a planned sort of way. In this project, this plan allows us to do that. So that collaboration with others is a key aspect of this. And the last point, and then I'll stop talking, Mr. Mayor, the whole issue of sustainability. When we're trying to retrofit older buildings with sustainable practices, it's very hard, very difficult to do. But when you're building something new, our ability to build into those projects and buildings and the land development sustainable practices is much, much greater. That will be done here if we're able to move forward with this project. I recommend it to you. The action tonight is to approve some of the key components of the master plan, which is essentially the location. You authorize us, if you vote for it, to proceed with some of the planning necessary to detail the plan for the first phase. And then last but not least, you would authorize us to move forward on land acquisition for the project as well. I do recommend it to you. I know we have some of the consulting team here that would be happy to answer questions should you have any. But it is a great step forward for the city if you are willing to take it.
Mr. Moore.
Well, as a former city employee, this idea has been batted back and forth since the mid-'90s, and it's gotten to the point where a lot of our employees are saying, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And this is one step where we're closer to them being able to see it. I think this will be exceptional for the morale of our employees. When Rick is talking about sustainability of the current buildings, to make them sustainable would probably cost more than just to build this facility. And I can tell you that we've got windows where snow is coming in around them and snow under doors, and they're not very energy efficient. And I'm very proud that this day is finally coming. I wholeheartedly support this project. Rick and I discussed this afternoon. I think we both agreed on the fact that this needs to be done in such a way that 50 to 75 years from now, our residents, are proud of the fact that we really thought this project through. So I'm going to move 46 and 46A.
I have one question on this. The $18,500,000 that we're talking about in the fiscal impact, is that a gross amount? So that's before we take into account selling of land or disposition of land?
Ms. Dinsley, that is a gross amount, and it will be funded, by the way, from a number of resources to the extent we can sell land and get land proceeds there. But we have a number of different accounts, both in the capital improvement program, general fund, or general obligation bonds, as well as some of the utility accounts. And there are some federal dollars that we will try to avail ourselves.
Are you using some urban renewal money from the tax increment finance?
Mr. Meyer, thank you so much. This is located in a tax increment district, so we will utilize tax increment resources as well. Frankly, the name of the game in this day and age is to mix and match your funding sources, so we're going to have a list of sources as long as you're armed to make this happen.
Okay. Anybody else?
Quickly, I might just add, I'm fully supportive. I'm actually really pleased that Skip got to be the one to move it, because I know he spent a lot of time with the guys that and women that will be spending their careers here, and I think it's a great statement that you can speak to how critical it's needed. My only comment is what I said when we had the workshop on it, and that is I really want some urgency to phase 2. And in fact, Mr. Delafield wrote us a summary of the meetings that were held. I guess it was last week now. And he closed by saying, overall, the attendees, this is the summary, found the project to be favorable, and there were no objections expressed. The urgency to move efficiently through the project to implementation of Phase 1 was conveyed. There seemed to be sentiment among all groups that implementing the second phase of the project would be a benefit to the city, and I wholeheartedly agree. And I think, as the consultant about time management and efficiency said, it's really Phase 2 where we get to a lot of it. We have to find a way to cut back in other areas, I think, to get to there. And I hope that is on your radar screen as something that we can accomplish over the next couple of years.
Okay. Anything else? Any other comments?
7 yes.
Right. We have already presented 47. Item 48 is the Urban Renewal Development Agreement and Conceptual Development Plan for the redevelopment of 3801 Merle Hay Road by 3801 LLC, Richard Eichner. Council Communication number 11-483. Anybody in the audience here to speak on this item? Development along Merle Hay Road.
If no one wishes to speak, I'll go ahead and move item 48. I saw the footings went in this weekend, so get it built. Get it built.
Moving forward.
7 yes.
All right, we have a couple of extra items that were filed late in the day. One is to receive a request from Clear Channel Outdoor to consider acquisition of property at 849 Army Post Road, and Councilmember Meyer asked us to put that on. So, Councilmember Meyer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to be clear on this particular item, this is the city would acquire the property from Clear Channel. If you're familiar with the corner, there's 2 parcels of property there. One is owned by Clear Channel and one is owned by Richard Hurd. And what I'd like to do is acquire this property and possibly assemble the other property with it to have a really nice piece of property that can be developed into something that's going to be a taxable property for the city. And refer this, the motion will be to refer this to the city manager's office to see if we can work on finding a way to acquire this property.
Okay. Anybody in the audience to speak on this? Seeing none, we have a motion.
Seven yes.
All right, item 2 on our extra items is to receive communications from the Bright Grandview proposed art signage sculpture ad hoc committee regarding the review of the John Sayles proposed signage sculpture. Sponsor is Councilmember Mahaffey. Mr. Mahaffey?
Yes, this, there's a lot of activity going on at the new construction of the clubhouse at Grandview Golf Course. And this signage here that we're looking at would be a sign that would be sort of greeting people as they come into the clubhouse. We would maintain our same style of sign that we have on other properties around on the west side of the clubhouse. This would go on the where the entry into the clubhouse would be, and that I don't know how many you've seen it, but it's a real nice design with some relative to the golf course. And this has been, Mr. Sayles has agreed to raise the funds in that to develop and manufacture this sign, and so we'd have no investment as far as the city is concerned. And I'd like to move this so that we could, this has been a long time coming, and I'd like to move this so we can continue to get this accomplished.
A couple of questions,
Yep.
Bob. What are we talking about, the total price of the sign, and will they use the Greater Des Moines Community Foundation?
Don't have any, I don't have a dollar cost on this because he's raising all the funds himself and to manufacture it, and he would manufacture it.
So will he be raising the funds under the city?
Yes. He'd be raising funds.
Skip shook no, and you said you.
No, I think he's raising the funds on his own, and then the sign will, when it's installed and complete, will be donated to the city.
Yeah,
Okay.
but he'd be, I thought you asked if he'd raise it throughout the city, but
Okay, I
think they
thought
would
you meant
be.
through the city.
No.
Yeah, no, it's using the city's name, I guess, is to raise the funds and saying that he wants the city's endorsement of the sign so he can go out and then raise the appropriate dollars.
What I'd like to do is offer an amendment to this. I got a call from John Sells this afternoon. He just received this document. And if we could approve this and refer it back to the manager to sit down and go over these bullet points and these concerns with John, I think it's of the utmost important that we move ahead with this. He's missed some fundraising opportunities, and he'd like to get started on that and have it installed for the grand opening next spring.
So then you're saying that we should accept this and refer it back to the city manager as a motion rather than to approve this then?
Yeah, I think it needs to go back to Rick to talk with John and make sure that all these bullet points are correct on here.
Okay. Is that fine with you, Rick?
It's, Mr. Mahaffey, council members, it's fine with me. My intention would be that if we can approve this and go forward, we'll do so. If further council action is necessary, and I'll work with Mr. Lester on that point, and of course all of you. If that's necessary, we'll of course bring it back, but if there's a way that we can do it with our own authorities, we'll do that as well. So yes, we'll proceed on it.
Okay.
And he has, this has been run by Lois Bright, the foundation with which we got $950,000 for the naming rights to make it the Bright Grandview Golf Course. So.
Sorry, I pushed the wrong button, Diane.
Okay, 7 yes.
All right, could we have a motion to adjourn as council and reconvene as Board of Health? It's been moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We now sit as Board of Health. First item is a motion to convene, but now we're approving the legal department to proceed with court action seeking authority to abate public nuisance at the following locations. A is 409 East Granger. It's a main structure and a garage structure. And B is 3130 Second Avenue. It's a main structure and a garage structure. Is there anyone here to speak on either one of these items? Mr. Eichner, did you want to speak on either one? Okay. Can we have a motion? It's been moved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Item passes. That is the only items on our agenda tonight. Could we have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
It's been moved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We sit adjourned. Thank you all.